Hello everyone, here's our CSCI 380 web programming and interface design, and today will be our week 4 lecture. And so far we will discuss about what's the productive web programming, and then talk about what's the good or bad practice, and then what's related to the structure of website and how can we work as a team, and try to using the GitHub. Okay, so we'll go through all this some basic structure, and just some follow-up question. So just asking you, if you remember, we talked about the HTML, like text and element. Okay, text, those element. So you may look at it like, is a correct format, the HTML? So it's okay. Open this like open goes, and then do we have a quite have a break or form size, and then access the inline CSS. Okay, so you can take a look. So right here, if we have data text they are nested, then we should do it in this way. So if you let's say if your first one is font, okay, should be start with font, okay, and then bold, okay, goes bold, and then for italic should be italic like this, okay. So they should be in that's the correct order, okay. Just like quick revision. And when we ask a question, so what do we mean by the productive web programming? So we will say something including the structure. Okay, so when we design the structure of programming, okay, most of the time we need to start with what kind of function, what's the purpose, okay, then we can decide. And also what's the usability, okay, how can we use those like different parts. If we're using React.js, because most of them will be like component based, right? And also when you are building different components, then we think about like how can we reuse those components. Okay, so it's the idea, and then robustness, also scalability. Okay, so all these of course in our class we are not yet like covered that much, and also maybe most of your project you are not yet like considered like this, but in the real production, okay, really productive programming. So we need to think about, okay, how can we able to support all these like feature, like how can we, in case we need to make it bigger, okay, increase the scale, then how can we do that? So is it easy for us to change it by the scales? So it's important. And also we are asking what's the reason why like structure is so important, because it can help us to understand how everything like fits together. So it's giving a big picture. Okay, so we need to know. Okay, so in the beginning, how can we design all the structures all together? So also it's like in behind, because it includes the logical and reliable. Okay, and also we need to consider how is the interaction between client and server. Okay, so when you design a structure, sometimes we say maybe nowadays we will have a called the lightweight front end. Okay, that means like for the lightweight client, so we try to keep less content in the client side, and then like we rely on most like content delivered from the server. Of course, like one thing in behind that we should have a faster network. Okay, so this is pretty common if you look at the industry. Then we can say, oh, okay, maybe I don't want the user to change lots of client size content. Then maybe I would deliver most of the information data structure like built from the server. So we can do it like this. Then we can answer question like what goes like where and why. So this like on client side, server side. So we need to decide. So that's why we need to decide the structure. So when you need to build a website, maybe always maybe in this moment you're still playing with React.js, but when we really need to design productive website, then we need to think, okay, what kind of content should we keep on the client side? What kind of content should we put it on the server side? Okay, or a good example, let's say we have some content, let's say for some maybe some notification, alert content or something. So are you going to like save on the server side and then just requesting for it, like request the notification? So those like notification content we deliver from the server side. So we can ask this question. And right here, we can see the called the three-tier architecture. So nowadays we do have like called a front-end application for mobile device, desktop, okay, and then some like APIs right here delivered as a JSON file. And we talk about like JavaScript, HTML5. We didn't cover that much. Once we're building as the React.js. Of course, there's some content we cover about that. Okay, and then we have the CSS, and then we have the called CSS3. We save certain content like XML. Okay, all these will be the front end. And then we have the web application in behind some like UI business integration, including the PHP or Python. And for the Python, I think I mentioned one of the application is called Odoo. They're using like all Python to build their web application. Okay, so it's one of it. And also we have some like compiled software application, including Java, C++, like this. So it's the backend application. And then the last one is the database application. So maybe we can using relational database DBMS. For example, MySQL, or we using the NoSQL, MongoDB, or sometimes like data warehouse, all this. So you will see right here, the client side will be the front end, and then server side, including back end application and the database application. So you need to know the structure. And for the client server architecture, so right here for the client, including the user interface. So JS, HTML, all this. Okay, so including we have all the scripts, and we will communicate to the server, and then sending. We do have some like web application. So later we are building this one using Happy.js or like Express if you have that. So okay, or we can use PHP, okay, Python, all this. So we have certain script. So this script can connect to database directly, or we do have some like compiled software connect to some business logic application. So it's all possible. Later, when we cover what's using API, Happy.js, okay, as an example. And first part, we will build an API server, then how can we connect to a database, and then we can retrieve the data. Okay, so you know. And if you look at the client side and server side script, so for the client side script, so we are designed to run on the user device. So it can be seen by the user. So it can provide some like interactive and then the UX, UI UX. So you better user experience. So we put right here. And for the server side, we decide like we should let it run on the server. So it cannot be seen by a user. And also it only interact with server application and the database. Okay. So right now what we are doing will be the blue part right here, will be the client side scripting. So we build this area. And later after we cover them, we'll talk about the server side, like script on the server, and then how can we manage the database. And the scripting language, so it was like designed to like glue of them together. So we can nowadays we can use the Node.js for everything. So for like compile all the applications, okay, let them together, and then we can use for the database interface, and it also provides some built-in functions, also library. So once we learn in Node.js, it's all covered. Okay, so you see, and when we talk about like some like web application, that's why we also sometimes say it's scripting. But you need to know web application, it doesn't mean the compiled software application. So that one is more like resource managed capability. Just be careful right here. Business logic application right here is another one. So integrated with other applications. Okay, and right here, just like thinking have a better pictures. If the user, most of the I would say the end user, okay, they see the final output, but actually in behind you see the outermost is the UI. Okay, but in behind we saw the magic in behind. So first, how can we build all the components, connect to the server, and then how can we connect to the database and retrieve data? All this, like we say, it will be the magic. Okay, so it's easier to make mistake and get some like bad habit because when we building, so only seeing the outermost, okay, and then we don't know the magic. So be careful. And how can we create a better like building a good practice like for web scraping. For of course, think about the maintenance. Okay, so it's harder to read code than write it. It's just like thinking if you try to read other source code, it's really challenging because like you do have your own logic, right? So when you're writing, sometimes how do you declare your variables? Okay, maybe how do you put in the if condition? Okay, how can you check it? What's your looping? So all these, okay, or your comment putting on it. So think about how can I make it easier for maintenance, or if I need to update certain variable, change names, how can we make it better for management? So think about the maintenance. Okay, so then you try to make it always like how to do that, always say then your script in block. Okay, it's easier, but nowadays we are using certain IDE. Okay, the IDE can help us, or sometimes in the script we will marking like what's the this block doing, and then what's the beginning, what's the ending. Okay, cover, especially when we have a tag for the web programming. So because we have an open tag and closed tag, okay, so we try to like make sure when we have the next block, then we never, sometimes like we will be confused. Even you wrote your own script, then you're being confused by yourself. So sometimes you can giving some comments help yourself. Okay, different block indentation helping you. And also like comments as I say, like to explain why what you are doing, what do you need to build this one. Sometimes you're just thinking like even you're just thinking imagine you're talking to yourself, or like when you're writing you have to let yourself know, okay, why I'm going to write this part or this function, what's the purpose. Okay, suddenly you were thinking like, oh, it's so ridiculous, like or like it's really straightforward, we don't have to put any comment, but it can help, and then also help others to read your script. Okay, and next one is like try to organize your files and folder in a systematic way. Okay, so if your application file should like reflect your 3-die architecture, create some folders, so let all the script associate with the functionality, so in the same folder. We do have the CSS file, we do have a JS file, maybe we have different component, or when we create things like, let's say, homepage, about containers or somehow, or we have other function features, we can name it. Also try to name the files directory, okay, with the meaningful names, okay. Also the variable, okay, so when we learning programming, sometimes we're using like let I, let J, right? So some for some variables, it doesn't have any meaning. But when we create certain variables, it can help us to read directly. Okay, so if I want to calculate what's the pi, okay, so for this variable, it's like giving what kind of data. So you can like name it with some meaningful name, okay. And also you can look at here because like here's the practice. If you see this one is the PHP files, and they try to like adding like image right here, there, and then web PHP shopping right here, and we circulate application like this for the website. Is it why it's not a good structure? Because you didn't really make them separate. Right here, if a good practice, you see right here we have a UR file. Okay, UR files including the like the front-end JS, CSS image file. If you try to check most of the website, they do come with good structure. And then sometimes with the library, when you define the library, we do have some like external plugin, some section validation file. Okay, of course the entry point index file, index.php, or like the index.html, so we can design. Or sometimes we have the JS script. If we make it separate, then you won't see it. Or sometimes we have the business apps like CRM, ERP, or this, or some database app. So we make them separate. Okay, different folders. And then next, try to write some like robust and small script connected by a clear interface. For beginner, we always try to put everything, okay, blend everything together because it's more easier for control. But for a better practice, we will always try to break down all the functions. Okay, so that's why we create different classes, and also especially when we using React, So we're building everything by components. So you just imagine it, each part, each section can be like built as an independent components, and then later you just create a page and then group them together, put them together. So try to resist the temptation of direct connect the UI query with the database query. So try not to like get it. So we always go through some like API, okay, and also resist the temptation like bypass your program interface. For testing, you may be say, okay, let me retrieve the data directly, like get it locally. But for a better habit, okay, even your host, let's say your website, API server, and database, okay, all together. But you say, okay, my database server already executing is running in the same local host. Why don't I just directly access it? It's not a good habit, or like for security issue, or for management. Okay, so why here? So I'm always learning to build a better habit. Second part is I try to apply the OO programming. Okay, so just imagine if we want to build a clear interface, try to think about, okay, maybe what's those objects, what kind of attributes, behavior, and then you can behave, or even you can apply for your website. Let's say for the about us page, okay, what kind of attribute are required, what kind of behavior you can, or you have contact us, okay, contact us. So what kind of attributes, you maybe a form, and then what kind of action, maybe you can submit the form, right? Submit the email, okay, whatever, send an email. So all these will be their behaviors. And next part, try not to use your own like global variable. Okay, just be careful. Pretty common because you want to access those like global variable much more easier. You can access, but later in our lab, and you will see we try to pass the parameter. So we only pass the parameter when we need, or when we design structure, right? So for certain content, can we request it from the server side? Okay, keep it as minimal as possible. Use some like building global variable, like super globals, and also try to ideally usually use like one file per functionality. So doing in this way. This one is an example like PHP super global, but for React, we do also can do it in this way. It's a logically we can do it, and then always try to like do one thing and do it well. So here's the idea. Try not to add multiple function like together. So just implement only one functionality per your program. Like for this one, I only fetch the data, fetch data. If you want to show the data display a list, then you can write another function to display it. Then you can like pass the data to another function. So it will be a better practice. Try not to add more functionality to original script. So if you need, just like break it down and then save a different file, you can import those functions and then think about which reusable. Can we reuse this function? Or if I generate a list or fetching, okay, can I write a same function and reuse this fetching function? I just need to pass a URL, and then after I fetch the responded JSON file, then how can I like output to another function? So it will be a better way. So doing it this way. And also just like as what we say, when we're doing only one thing, try to doing the code review, doing the unit test. We will cover the unit test in the last week of the session, because it's a bonus extra. So I will show you how to do that, like some functional testing, integration testing, all this will be the last part. We'll cover it. And also follow one thing is called the open code principle. So code should be like open for extension, but closed for the modification. So right here, so when we write the code, like doesn't have to change every time for required training. So for the OO, we do a like public way if you know function, and when we try to feeding and then pass a function, what's the food? Okay, so this like hungry like this. But when we checking, okay, for certain we checking the passing parameter right here. So if you see, okay, if we match certain content, then we have certain output. If not, we have another output. We always try to check like those like code thing, and then if we have certain extension, then how can we allow extension? Okay, how can we allow it? So you can see right here, extend it. Okay, here's the OO concept. So based on that one animal, then we can extension modify instead of like go back to the original source code and then modify. So it's the idea. So if you want to change the if function, then you can just override this function, or it's a better for modification. And kind of a similar idea right here. So if we try to like open for extension, so code for modification is like we always are keeping one interface, okay, interface right here, but you can change different extension. That means that you can adapt to anything. So single responsibility of them. So we do up their encapsulation. So here's the idea of design. It's easy to pick up something, but for the better design, it's more important. So try to think, okay, especially you are developing the program by yourself, okay. And also when you write the code, so it doesn't have to like change every time the requirement change. How can we prevent this? Maybe we need to focus in a reusable. So how can we change it to like modules? Okay, modules function, component function, and then make all these small function contain a single algorithm and data in it. So always like pass one parameter was the output. Okay, and try to avoid using some like global variables. So it's more important. So once we pass in, and then what's the output? So it will be easier for us to manage it. So it's a one of practice. And we will ask like why to use the version control. Okay, and we talk about what's the companies, and then what's the popular version control system, and why you want to like use a version control. When you prepare, maybe in this moment you just playing with Node.js, create your React project. But if you're ready for production, then we need to use it. It kind of like in industry standard. If you go to any tech company or most of company for programming developer, then you need to use it. Okay, version control. It helps us to check the progress, what are the changes, what is the bug, and then you leave in comments, and then we can always like providing backups. Okay, so it's more safety, and then we can collaborate, like work together as a team. Okay. I know some of you maybe already know how to use Git. Okay, so you can use a Git, okay, to create projects, and you can easily like collaborate with your other good mates. And also it giving you the flexibility for you to work together. Always we say the Git and GitHub. Git is the version control standard. Just be careful. And then GitHub is the social hosting platform. So you need to aware of this one. If you install the GitHub, you may not yet install Git. So if you want to use a command like git clone, git push, git add, so you need to install Git. But if you want to use the GitHub this platform, so you need to open the account and then add to it. So it's kind of like free, and also the most popular choice for web development. So all this, you can see others project. If you are really like programming, go to GitHub and search like what those are open public project. If you are interested, you can clone it and modify, upload to your GitHub. Okay. Another one actually called the Git buckets. I think the most common one is the GitHub. Okay. So many companies they are using Git, so you have no way to avoid it. Okay, so it's a must. So you're learning. So that's why we be careful. We also try to use the right tool for the right job. It's the most important. Okay, and right here slightly have some like checklists you can think about like for web programming. So always don't ignore the good programming practice. Therefore, web, okay, because the structure or like nowadays we for the language itself, like kind of like provide you flexibility. So you do need to think about, consider like what's the coding guidelines we need to follow, and then what's your development process, which one, and then what's the naming. Okay, how can we check the issue? Okay, how can we do the source control like this? How can we can do it together? And another thing is the teamwork. If you're working in the industry, okay, pretty sure. So right now maybe you have good project. So good work is essential. We always like working together. We could have a story. Okay, so every week, maybe the project manager, your team manager will give you a certain function. So maybe you have like give you a certain time to complete it, and every week maybe have a, pop-up meeting, stand meeting. Okay, have a quickly response like what do you do last week? What are you going to do this week? What kind of like what's your progress like this? So you have to report. So group work always like doing together. So we knowing the progress. It's always challenging working together, but it's also important. Okay, so try to learning each other at this, and then building the skill set ability like share each other. So sometimes when you think about your solution and then when you share with others, then you maybe come up another way to solve it. So always crucial to for teamwork doing together. Okay. And how can we manage or track your team's tasks? Sometimes like when some people saying going to this, some no. Okay. I know maybe in a good project, maybe gonna happen. Okay. So communication do well there. And as we talk about the open source project, so are these open source really important? We can ask. So we can say that would be like great if we got like more people involved in open source. And as well, we say like different version of language community. If we are bigger open source, lots of people contribute, then it can make this community like go stronger, bigger. Okay, so you can get more resources. So that's why open source can embrace like open innovation, helping the coding learning. We can share like everyone's idea, okay, supporting each other. So business card for skills, like it can help you to build your profile. That's like when you're using GitHub, when you see like keep posting some modified code, then it can be a good profile. And also community support, okay, bring idea to life is more important. And also you can write some like useful documents, share to others, so it can help you to build practice. Like also like giving us some standards. Okay, what's the header for details of files, copyright, all this, and also try to bring comments others to read it. Okay, some people will give you feedbacks, helping each other. So that's why when you search online, you can looking for some solutions. So those are open source. Okay, or like download some open source code. So it can help you to build a project. Synergies also is a good way. And also it can help us organize some issues, including the like track bugs, create some certain tasks, okay, create some different type of features, all this. And also we can use like different tools help us like to building project. Also we can provide better planning for organize. Okay. And kind of right here will be about the community. We always talk about the community because we always think it bigger. So if you always thinking, okay, I'm building for myself, okay, it's just like really too narrow. And but if you think bigger, how can others use it? It's more like a library. Then how can of course our reputation is important, and how can we utilizing users? Okay, how can they do testing, giving certain tips? Okay, and also how can we do some like showcase, giving demo? If you look at the npm, okay, certain library, how they doing documentation, how can you install them? Okay, and how can we change like what's the release of build, what's the versions? Okay, what is the features of each update? So you need to like tell them. Okay, and then maybe if I need to use them, okay, or other user need to use it, how can you show, giving showcase, how can they use your source code? So it's like it's a good, pretty good habit. Okay, so when you're working as a group, also is a better way for you for practicing, because you know okay, if you want to let others use your function, so you need to tell what's this function doing, what's the input, what's the output. Okay, so here's the idea. How can they call your function? So you can tell him, okay, maybe if you have certain update, maybe if you want to do that, or you will build more features, then how can you show in the version? Okay, that's more important. So for just quick revision. So can you free using code resource from the GitHub? So if it has no license, just be careful right here. No public declaration of license, but free to use, modify, sell, or contribute to the software. And if there's a the repo, okay, have no license, this always reserved, is not the open source or free. So you cannot modify and contribute this code without explicit permission from the copyright holder. So here's the answer. Quickly just go through our web programming. Should we just talk about some like how can we knowing the productive web programming concept and try to giving some like good and bad practice, okay, and apply them, okay, in the real standards, and planning, giving some certain features, and most important, how to use with the open source. And that's it so far for the web programming for our lecture. And later, we will keep going and work on more on the React project, and then later we'll move on to the server. Thank you.